This is a go live to YouTube. Welcome, everybody, and thank you so much for joining us. If you are watching us live, otherwise, this is recorded. And so, of course, this is Conversations with Mitch Gray, and my name is, of course, Dr. Keith McNally. So, we welcome everybody into our weekly conversations, or as frequently as we can get them, to talk about men's mental health. And so, Mitch,
Hey Keith,
how are you doing today?
doing okay. How are you?
Okay, I'm doing really good. Actually, this is a good start.
Good,
This is a good Monday. This is a good start to the week. So we are
good.
alternating focuses. And so today the focus is on me. Not that I'm narcissistic, but I love when the focus is on me because so much of my life, the focus has never been on me. And so I do appreciate the time that I get to talk about things that are important.
Today
But
the spotlight is on you. Today it's on you. Don't read it yet. Don't read it from your book yet. Walking the Path. It's Dr. Keith McNally's newest book, and go find it anywhere you order books.
actually, go find it on Amazon because that's where I need you to
Okay, go
buy it
find it on
from.
Amazon. Okay, so go buy it on Amazon. Yeah.
So walking the path of
So
leader's journey, right?
yes, don't read the paragraph yet. We're not ready to read the paragraph yet. Don't do that. Yeah, friends. So today we are talking about what it looks like to have a mentor. And this is a subject that is a passion for Keith. And you wrote about this quite a bit in your book about having a mentor, what role a mentor can play. And so I know you want to read an excerpt from the book, and then I've got questions for you so we can keep the narcissistic spotlight on you today and let you share all of your wisdom. So we're talking about having a mentor. Share with us from your book, my friend.
I do appreciate that. So we'd see how how humble I could get myself today. Anyway, so throughout the book, the mentor role was very critical in terms of because the book talks about or focuses on three or four, three young people specifically, but there were four within the group who are coming of age. And typically that's kind of the teenage years. And so they have just finished high school and are kind of moving into adulthood. And in the home, which is basically a valley, a community in a valley surrounded by mountains with no real access to technology. I kind of remove technology and all technological components because I wanted really to kind of tap into the human endeavor, what it really means to be human, operating within the scope of doing things with your hands, your mind, working together collaboratively with other people. And there needed to be that sense of physical human connection, connectedness, right? But a lot of times we don't really have a way of understanding or navigating through life unless somebody who has the wisdom and the insight to kind of guide you along, to kind of give you some guidance, maybe moral direction, and maybe some understanding of how life can and or should be lived. Without that direction, we tend to kind of flounder. And I know that was true for me because even though I did have a mom and dad and even an older sister, nobody really gave me guidance. And dad never did. My dad was always disconnected from me emotionally and, after my parents divorced, physically as well. And as such, mom was kind of surviving, trying to figure out how to raise me because unfortunately, at the time that I was 10 and my parents divorced, my sister is 5 years older, and at 15, kind of that did not sit well with her, and kind of
Mhm.
had her own issues, and so she was not involved with my life at all. At that point. So having somebody that you can kind of go to and rely on for help is always, always essential. So this is how I kind of approached it from chapter 2 of the book. The reason why mentors are so important is because we need someone to act as a reflection of our thoughts, feelings, and actions. We need someone we can trust to provide moral guidance and ethical support. The only perspective you have of yourself is your own. This single perspective lacks clarity and focus because it only allows for one perspective. How are you going to see the big picture if you only see the problem head on?
Mhm.
You don't have clarity of the bigger picture. You don't see the possibilities, and you definitely don't see the resources available to you if you are not looking for them. mentors help you see the bigger picture. And so that's what I wrote
Mm.
in chapter 2. I wrote that 2 years ago and I still believe it today. And so this is one of those things that
Yeah.
are kind of consistent with me, that you need to bring people into your circle in order for you to help navigate the world around you. And so I know our focus is always men's mental health, specifically around men's mental health. And so having those people, especially when times get tough, is essential.
So first, the big question, what is a mentor? Like give us not really a description, but what does it look like, a mentor?
Now, a lot of people that I talk to think mentors in terms of one, leadership. So somebody who's trying to bring somebody else into a leadership role. And then that's a whole nother conversation as well. But typically somebody who is there to help you show how to move past a problem, a concern, a
Mm.
situation, a challenge, only because they've gone through it themselves. And so they
Mm.
would recognize uh, the intestinal fortitude needed to take on a challenge or a problem, how to wrap resources around that, and how to communicate the things that you're going to go through emotionally, the frustration, the fear, the anxiety, things that are typically associated with things that are blocking us, typically from stepping into a role or
Yeah.
even an identity. And if not, definitely a maturation process. Uh, what's the next step in life?
Yeah. Yeah. Great idea. You made a statement in your book in that excerpt that you read, and that was a mentor should act as a reflection. What does that look like in real terms, in practicality, to act as a reflection?
So in the book, so the young man, his name is John, and John is faced with a real critical life decision, having turning 18 soon, and he does turn 18 in the book, in terms of he needs to find out who he is as a person. And more specifically, because he's becoming what's identified as an adult in the book. He's turning 18, and so therefore school is over. There's no college in this community. Like I said, it's probably identified as, very very basic in terms of we become craftsmen or fishermen and
Yeah.
farmers and whatnot. So you're identified as what you do in terms of your work. So everybody works together, everybody builds the community, everybody keeps each other safe when we work together. But he finds that this is not really the space. Not that he's not comfortable with it, but he doesn't feel that he fits into it. So he's more of
Mm.
an adventurer. He wants to know what's over those mountains. He wants to know if there's life outside of this expectation, right? So the mentor in this situation is there to kind of help him navigate that personal space. Why
Mm.
do you feel this way? What do you want to gain? What do you think you're going to lose or even gain if you stay here? And what are you going to lose or gain if you move on? It's somebody to help you kind of ask the question that you may not know to ask yourself, or thoughts to you may not even be thinking of. And so, well, I just want to go. Sometimes we just kind of we're so stuck in a
Right.
situation that we don't know to ask certain questions. We don't
Yeah.
know what we don't know. So if we don't know
Yeah.
what we don't know that how to ask a question. All I know is I want to escape this reality and find a new reality. But sometimes if we do that, we start jumping to different realities or different things that we think are going to make us happy or satisfied. We're simply landing in it may be a different situation, but we're still the same person. And so
Mm.
because we're still the
Mhm.
same person, we're still going to experience that different situation, although it's new, with the same emotional responses, the same thought responses, the same resources. And so we're not really different. We're just in a different scenario and we bring our same self with us. And so
Yeah.
the mentors ideally, the mentor is to say, well, if you move into this new situation, but you're still the same, this you're still bringing
Yeah.
you to the table. And so how is that going to change your life? But a
Right.
mentor should be able to guide in a way that you're growing into a new person, a new identity,
Mm.
a new self, so that you can better face the things. Well, what I'm really trying to say is you're going to create a new space for yourself in life because you now have the potential and you understand how to do that.
So when we talk about mental health and we talk about emotional health, specifically identifying those two areas, why do you think it's important for someone who's dealing with mental health disorders, emotional distress, et cetera, to have a mentor? And what role could that mentor play specifically for those areas?
Dealing with our thoughts, dealing with our emotions, making sense of them is difficult, especially for men.
Yeah.
Men are not taught and definitely feel a discomfort outside of maybe the two of us at this point, how to use words and how to really identify with the emotional responses we have with our life circumstances, whether it's a
Right.
challenging relationship, a work issue, um, even finding purpose, on a
Mm.
day-to-day basis. How do I find real value in what I do? All of those things wrap around us and create this area of discomfort because
Yeah.
men don't know how to communicate that. They just know how to respond maybe in a very negative emotional way. So becoming angry, becoming frustrated, um, dive into, well, this job isn't satisfying me. Let me find a new job, right? It's that
Ah,
newness that will probably change things. And again, going back to before, until you change,
yeah.
just because you're in a new situation, a new circumstance, you're still bringing the old you to that table. So a mentor who has gone through that personal transformation
Mm.
will then be able to recognize and say to that individual, say, you say to me, and like you did before, many, many years ago, you're still bringing the same you to the table. You're bringing all of that stuff that has burdened you for so long,
Yeah.
and you're trying to find a new space to bring it to. Why are you doing
Yeah.
that? When it's really the you that we need to change. Now, that's could easily fall on you as, well, damn, you don't like me, you're criticizing me, and all those
Right.
things,
Right.
um, until it kind of hits you that, well, let's look at the pattern. Let's look at
Mm.
the patterns of your habits, your behaviors, your thoughts. When we identify the fact that you're bringing the same patterns, the same thoughts, the same
Mm.
feelings to the next job or the next relationship or the next situation, how do you, it's that there's that adage, insanity is doing the same thing and expecting
Over
a
and
different
over. Yeah.
result,
Different
something like
results.
that.
Yeah.
So if
Yeah.
you're bringing the same thing to every situation, how are you expect anything to be different when you're
Mm.
not different? So
Yeah.
that's really where then the mentor can kind of add light to where there's, confusion and darkness. Your thoughts are the same. Your patterns of behavior are the same. Until we really identify, maybe not in a therapeutic way as a therapist to say, well, these are, the core, you were, your mama didn't like you and she raised you a certain way. Not going through that, but as soon as the person can recognize that the habitual behavior is the same, well, how do we start changing the habitual behavior and saying, oh, well,
Yeah.
if I did this X, Y, Z, and I'm over here I'm not going to, I shouldn't expect something to be different.
Yeah.
But if I start to say, if the mentor, like you said, starts asking questions, starts giving some insights into recognizing how that behavior of the individual, the mentee, has not changed, and then saying, well, what if you were to, you know, do something differently, think about the situation differently, talk about the situation differently? What would be that
Right.
difference? Yeah.
Right. Right. So let's dig into you a little bit. Who is the mentor, and for the listeners and viewers, who has kind of been your mentor in life, and what role did they play, and uh, did they really do the things that you're talking about for you?
So I never had one until I met you. And so that's why we're having these conversations.
Yeah.
And that I say that really kind of sadly because
Mhm.
when was it? Like 3 years ago. So it's a
Yeah.
2024, live stream here. And um, so 3 years ago, and I'm going to be 55. So 51, 52 years old, not really having developed that kind of relationship with anybody to say, hey,
Right.
um, would you be in that space where I can kind of come to you, talk to you, ask you
Hmm.
questions? Um,
Hmm.
Most people kind of want to get paid for that. They want to be called
Yeah. Yeah.
coach. They want to be
Yeah.
called coach and get paid for it. But, in places where people are going to be truly authentic and powerful and impactful, for them to be mature enough to kind of take somebody on, like you did with me.
Hmm.
Um,
Hmm.
whatever was the inclination to say, I'm going to help this guy. He's in a bad spot. He's dealing with some stuff. He doesn't know how to figure it out. You did that. And
Hmm.
so, moving forward, I've kind of moved into a space where I'm willing to do that and am doing that. So first it was kind of getting through some really, really challenging situations in my life.
Yeah.
Specifically, I wanted to live, needed to learn how to live again, and needed to want to
Hmm.
want to live again, want to be alive rather than want to be dead. So once we kind of get past that, it was really you're impressing upon me that we can work together, but two, you always, in one way, shape, or form, impressed upon me that I have the answers, that the answers are within.
Yeah.
Um, they're not out here. Again, they're not in this next relationship or in this relationship or this situation or this job. The answers really are within. It's the journey, it's the exploration of breathing, becoming more in tune with your thoughts rather than just being chaotic and sporadic. Um, Slowing life down, very much so.
Hmm.
So we kind of live in this very fast-paced, three-dimensional world, where we're constantly, and we hit all over the place with this knowledge, social media, news, work,
Yep.
relationships. You got to bring it back. You got to slow it down, and you got to start picking those things that would you would want and need to invest my energies into, because of always being burdened down by all the inputs that are coming into me. I'm going to go
Right.
back to world is chaos. My life is chaotic. I can't think straight. That really does affect, the energies and emotions of my body. So they become distorted and distracted. And unfortunately, I react very, very negatively to overwhelm. So overwhelm puts me into, you know, what easily categories as PTSD, suicide ideation, and I just want to give up. And so
Yeah, right.
I really
Right.
had to come back and say, had to learn over time. So at this point, 3 years post, having to step into each day, breathe, have at least a focus or two for the day, not many focuses. From and those three focuses would easily be exercise, a singularity of focus in what I need to do at work, and maybe what I need to do with a relationship that I'm
Mhm.
in with my wife or whatever, my daughter. Focus, strategize on something that can be done there because those are your three primaries. Something that
Yeah.
you do for yourself personally, things that you have to do to earn a living, keep money, flowing in, and then you always have a relationship that you need to address in one way, shape, or form. So when you could bring that back and then put energies respectively into those categories, you are then in a safer place emotionally, physically, spiritually, cognitively, because you have clear control in how you're managing that energy. And then you can kind
Mhm.
of build from there. Once you pull back control, pull back the reins, you then have clarity, you have better clarity. And then you allowed to put yourself into practice, but always coming back. Because I always came back to you um, and said, this isn't working as fast as it should.
Yeah, I think it's human nature that we all want shortcuts. And I think what
Yeah.
we learn over time is there are no shortcuts. Like the process is the process, and that's just part of it. And it is about the journey, which is one thing that's great about your book is it really highlights the journey and that there are no shortcuts. And I have found that when we often try and take a shortcut, it elongates the journey because there's a lesson that we miss. And the universe has this strange way of bringing us back to the same lesson over and over again until we get it. And that kind of makes it both humorous and frustrating because it's like, oh, we're here again? Like I have to deal with this again? Yes, we have to deal with this again. So I guess my last question, Keith, is after you've shared all of this wisdom of having a mentor, of what it can look like to have a mentor, here's the $64 million question. Where does someone find a mentor? Like, do they just appear? Can someone strategically look? What does that look like? What was your experience?
For specific reasons, like, so, for example, work. There are professional associations assigned to different industries and multiple professional associations for different industries. And if you need to grow within your professional space, you can find a mentor. You would just go to an association for that.
Sure.
Um, if you are looking for a mentor for personal growth, you know, there are, people out there in that personal growth space, whether they're life coaches or whatever. You could go find them. Now, I just mentioned coach, and coaches want to be paid. But if you're in a space
They could
where,
still be a mentor. You can pay for a mentor. That is a
right, and
possibility. Yeah.
yeah, and you can do that, and so that's
Mhm.
another, you know, navigation tools. You can kind of go and become part of that circle, and
Yep.
LinkedIn groups, Facebook groups, do offer those. Uh, professional spaces where I'm looking for something. And then you start conversations like I did. You just start conversations.
MitchGrayMedia.com. That's a great,
MitchGrayMedia.com.
you can go
You
there.
start the conversations and say, this is kind of where I'm at. This is what I'm looking for. This is what I need. Um, with all that being said, you actually spoke a truth, meaning that the universe will circle around as if it's conscious about it. And I've mentioned that before
Mhm.
in conversations with you and other conversations. There's a consciousness that identifies the fact that it's really here, the conscious behind the universe and the design of the
Yeah.
universe. It's really here for our benefit. I mean, it's
Mm.
designed to
Yeah.
help us.
Yes.
And I say, and so I'm going to throw this because it's our conversation and it's my YouTube channel. Um, I say that, and this is some tongue in cheek, but some, you really need to reflect upon this. And I had this conversation with somebody else, and this goes back to Genesis chapter 1, I do believe. So early part of the creation story and whatnot, and the 6 days, and Adam and Eve, Garden of Eden. Um,
Right.
you know, they do something and get kicked out of the garden. They have kids, Cain and Abel, and Cain kills his younger brother Abel, right? And so I'm kind of pushing
Yes.
through a whole lot of content to kind of
Right.
get to the point of the universe teaching us a lesson. And so if you're Christian or Jewish, and if you kind of hold this with a certain, those who are listening, holding this to a certain context, that God specifically, punished Cain and Abel for disobeying, that hold on to that. But kind of hear me out here. Cain kills Abel, and God or Yahweh or whatever you want to call this entity, um, what really some basic things are identified, but there was never any real punishment for the act.
Mm.
There was never a punishment for the act.
Mm.
A couple things are exchanged, and the exchange is really short in terms of the narrative that I have read, even in the Hebrew context. Why'd you do it? You know,
Right.
your brother's blood is calling out from the ground. What prompted
Mm.
you? And a question wasn't asked, but it was more to the fact that why'd you do it? What was
Yeah.
the motivating factor? But there was never any context of, Cain, you did really bad. You're going to go to jail. I'm going to put you in,
Mm.
purgatory for X number of years until you know,
Hmm.
repent for your transgression. That never really happens. Cain was by nature, or by growth professionally, he was a farmer. He grew fruits and vegetables because we learned that from his offering, where Abel offered a male ram or something like that.
Was a
So
hunter. Yeah. Was a
yeah,
hunter.
so
Yeah.
we get the idea that
Yeah.
his professional space was different than Cain's because he offered
Right.
fruits and vegetables. So as a response, and I'll use that word, as a response to Cain's actions, he says, from now on, you will not be able to produce from the ground. So everything that you
Mm.
try to do from as growing vegetables, you will not. And that was the response to killing his brother.
Right. Right.
Doesn't even seem correlated in any way. He said that is
Uh,
the response in the text. And then Cain says, well, if I go forward from here, people out there, my reputation will precede me and people will want to kill me. And so at that point, not only is the response to the action not expected, but then God, Jehovah, shows mercy. He says, I'm going to put a mark on you. And so whoever kills you, given this mark, their consequences to killing you would be 7 times worse than not being able to produce anything from the ground. And so Cain goes forward. And what we then learn within the text again is that he uses his own intelligence and builds a town, builds a community around him because he knows his own work can't produce anything. So he marries a woman and then wraps some people around him because he knows that he's going to need people to grow food and build his
yeah.
community. So he builds a community. And so that's what we learn. He actually, you know, I guess, in some way, shape, or form, appreciative of the fact that he's not going to be killed. We don't know if he is or not. But then he also recognizes that because of the curse being put on him, not being able to produce, he builds people, he creates a community so that other people can share in the production, so that everybody can live. And so that kind of is my synopsis of that. Um, does that answer your question? Meaning that the universe finds a way of putting people in your life. This is directly answering your question. The universe will put, because you have to circle around until you learn the
Mm.
lesson. And so the universe is going
Mm.
to put people. He put you in my life. The universe will put people in your life to help you work through the circumstances, to give you to give you better clarity, gain a better perspective, additional perspectives. and even resources to kind of work through the issues that you're going through.
So they can just magically appear when you're ready.
They can magically appear when you're ready.
Yeah. Awesome. Awesome. Hey friends, thanks for watching and or listening to Conversations with Mitch and Keith. This has been Keith's turn to talk about having a mentor. So hopefully you've gained some wisdom and insight. And if you are seeking a mentor, feel free to reach out to us. Not that we can necessarily be your mentor, maybe we can, but we also have a lot of connections in the world to help you find the resources you need. So this is coming out in June, but May was Mental Health Month. So there are a ton of resources you can find on social media or on the internet to help you work through your mental emotional health journey. And like I said, reach out to either one of us, either via the YouTube channel or you can find us both online. So thanks for listening, and we'll see you hopefully next week.
Cool. Thank you, sir.